It doesn't feel safe when people define themselves as Christian or have a faith system, but everything that comes out of their faith system is something to be scared about or something to judge someone about or something that is like condemning. That doesn't feel safe. And it makes so much sense that people are like, I don't want to deal with them. I'm going to go somewhere else. And that's where, when we go back to the original message, when we think about the shorts and the clothing, that is an aspect. We talked about that being a distraction. But what if the distraction is that you are so judgmental? What if that's also a distraction? Isn't that something to consider? That instead of people coming to God or understanding the word, they're distracted and pulled away because you want to talk about someone's shorts. You don't want to talk about how, God has done these things for you, or this is the wisdom that God has implanted in you, and this is how God has showed up in your life. You want to talk about someone else and make them feel bad. That is also a distraction. But y'all let me know, because I just be on earth trying to figure it out and have us go through some good conversation starters.
They're gonna cancel me.
Hello, 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 hello. This is Dear Creator with Dana Daniela. I am Dana Daniela, and on this channel, we are focused on investigating our belief systems, forming quality questions, and placing a mirror in front of ourselves and say, why do I respond the way that I do to the content that I consume? That could be content that we consume in our everyday life, but it also could be the content that we consume online. Most of our space is going to be about the content that we consume online, because there are great conversation starters that come from our TikToks, our Instagrams, and our feeds. So today's conversation is inspired by two content creators, but at the end, we're going to try out listening and actively writing about other content creators and their thoughtful perspectives about their experience in life. But today's content is inspired by one, B. Simone. Are you familiar with B. Simone? If not, it does not really matter, because in this space, during this experience, we are not looking at B. Simone herself. We're looking at the scenario that we're building. So because we are responding to people that we don't know, we have to detach the name and look at the experience. So here is the experience itself. B. Simone, I'll use her name. She's an influencer in the United States of America. And because she's an influencer, people receive her in a particular way. They see her in a certain light. So everything that she does in life is exposed. It's on a big platform. She's on stage living life. So every movement that she makes, there is a magnifying glass. I find this to be so interesting to review because, one, we don't really know people, but the relationship that we have with people online that we don't know tells us a lot about ourselves. Now, B. Simone has come through my algorithm a few times, and I think it's because I did a video about her before, and now my algorithm says maybe you are interested in this experience, and I am. I'm so invested in this experience because what comes from B. Simone, the influencer, the content creator, great conversations, great conversation starters, opportunities for us to invest time in our thinking patterns, to invest time in how we can refine the way that we think, how we can be people who are strengthening either their core belief systems or finding ways to lean into different perspectives. So I want to say thank you, not only to B. Simone, but to all the content creators that I'm going to share in today's session today. B. Simone, she went to a church event and she wore shorts. So taking B. Simone out, there's an influencer in the United States of America who wore booty shorts to an event about God. There are a lot of questions that are going to come out of this. A little bit of history is that B. Simone has shared and exposed her relationship with spirituality and religion very loudly and very proudly, and she has brought attention to herself. And so therefore, people feel entitled to make videos like I am doing. I don't feel entitled to do so. I'm actually thankful that there is something that we can pull from here and we can do something with it. I decided to create a yay or nay game with all of the content that I'm exploring, and I'm inviting you all to participate. So as we watch these videos, there are going to be some questions on the screen, and you get to choose one. Some of them are going to be challenges. Some of them are going to be prompts, but you just choose one that you feel comfortable with as you find the video that stands out to you the most. So when you look at the video, did it trigger you? Did it inspire you? Is there something that you know based off of your experience that you can add to the comment boxes below? But most importantly, if you do not decide to write a comment, this is for your own experience, to write in your journal, to get to learn yourself. And the last note I'll make about this experience is I'm going to go through this experience and I'm going to be writing down keywords and phrases that come out that spark some attention, or there are some questions that I have around it, and then some study opportunities. So when I'm looking at some of the content, there's always an opportunity for me to study, and I use the Bible as a framework. So when I'm confused about something, or I'm wondering how should I respond to this, I'm thinking, what is my question first? Like, what is it that bothers me? What is the thing that is not clear to me? What questions come out of the experiences? Okay, this was a long intro. So let me start with the videos. I'm going to start with this first video. This is not actually a part of our session. This is going to be the warm up to the 3 videos that we're going to watch as it relates to responding to B. Simone's decisions in life. Okay.
I just learned something that instantly made me feel better about basically everything I've ever done. If you've ever done something embarrassing, like told a joke that landed nowhere near this planet, or posted something and immediately thought, this is so cringy, I'm so mad at myself right now, and then you replay it 1,000 times, spiraling, because now everyone obviously thinks that you're dumb. Actually, no, they don't. It's actually just your brain being dramatic, and science proves it. It's called the spotlight effect. Researchers at Cornell did a study where they made students wear a really embarrassing t-shirt to class and then guess how many people they think noticed that they were wearing that stupid shirt. Turns out the guesses were way off. The students wildly overestimated how many people even noticed or cared. Because while you're busy spiraling, we are busy spiraling about our awkward moments, so is everybody else. If you're doing it, I'm doing it. If you're wondering why we do this, I looked it up. Our brains evolved to overestimate how much attention is on us. Because back in the day, being judged by your group would literally mean you'd be kicked out of the tribe. Jeff Probst just snubbing out your fire. That was forever ago. There's way more people and way more to worry about. So now that thing that you said at lunch, no one remembers because they also said things at lunch. So the next time that you're stuck in a very weird brain loop over something that you said, or nervous about trying something new, it seems we should just do it anyway because nobody is thinking about you as much as you are, which I can't believe I'm relieved to hear that, but I am. So yeah, go do the thing or stop worrying about the thing that you did do. I didn't notice.
So watching this video inspires me in 2 different ways. One, it inspires me to go out on YouTube and create content like the yay or nay game. The second is provides me an opportunity to think a little bit more deeply, because sometimes I hear content and I think, but how and why? My question here is, if people really aren't thinking about you, why are people always thinking about people? Let's take this B. Simone case. B. Simone is a person who lives in the United States of America. She has built a following. She has influenced people in particular ways. She has broadcasted her life. And so because of this, people are watching and they are thinking about her. They're thinking about her decisions, the moves she make. They're invested in saying anything that they want about her. I'm a person online in the United States of America using B. Simone's content to bring in some conversation. So I'm thinking about her. We're thinking about her. Now, when we pull back, why are we thinking about her? It's not because we really, really are thinking about her. It's because we're thinking about ourselves. If we pair it together, people aren't really thinking about the people that they decide to respond to online. They're thinking about their belief systems and what they're passionate about. It's really revealing who we are when we respond. So think of the situation. If someone responds to B. Simone's content and they are a passionate believer in Jesus Christ and they see this person showcasing things that is against it, they might say, I need to respond. Not because of the person doing it, because it really could be a placeholder for anyone. The name B. Simone doesn't have to be the name. It could be Tanya or she, he, Lenry, Leroy. It could be Albert. Whoever does the thing and whoever has the platform where you can see it, they give you an opportunity to show yourself who you are. So now we're going to go through a few different videos, and I wanted to take this same perspective that no matter who we're looking at, because I don't know these people, try to remove that person and just look at the words, listen to the words and the ideas that are being brought out, and learn, what do you get taught about yourself? Do you have any passions that come up? Are there any triggers that come up? Are there things that inspire you, that interest you, that rah-rah you? What comes out when you are listening to the content? For each piece of content, again, I have to reiterate that we're playing a game. I'm refining it, so I'm making sure that these instructions are instruction. Ooh, that's not a word, but I'm gonna make it one today. I hope that these words are instructioning in a way that you can receive it. So I'm going to do my best to slow this down and make sure it makes sense, because today is the beginning of us cultivating and refining this game together. Because I hope that in the chat below that you'll give me some feedback on whether or not my instruction came through to you or not. But again, I had to admit that this is exposure therapy for me, rejection therapy, where I'm just getting online. I'm trying my best to communicate my thoughts in the best way possible. So if you're interested in joining that journey with me, I do welcome your feedback in the most mindful and thoughtful way so I can do something with it. Okay, let's go.
No way that any of y'all are defending B. Simone for what she wore to church. Are we serious? Where do we draw the line? And I see people talking about, well, the Lord says to come as you are. He's talking about your heart, you as a person. He's not talking about your clothes. And even if that was the case, she is B. Simone. She has money. It's not like she couldn't afford pants. She chose to not wear pants. She chose to wear them short ass booty shorts, jean jorts, whatever you want to call them. With a blazer and a tie. First of all, even if she wasn't going to church, that fit was ass. That fit was tacky. People are, oh my God, you're judging somebody. Oh my God. Did you let a man walk into the church with his drawers on or butt naked? Did you let some strippers walk in they thongs in the church? But like, oh no, come as you are. No, we gotta set standards. Why did she wake up and choose to wear that? I'm confused. Mind you, she was giving a sermon in that joint. You look goofy as hell. Somebody gotta say it. Like, nah, bro, like, what you doing? We gotta start setting standards or something, bro. Cause she out of pocket and she know that.
Okay, so now we are going to go into the yay or nay game. So based off of this content creator, there are a lot of things that we can respond to. I'm just going to share some of the keywords that stood out to me and some of the things that I want to study. So the content creator uses the phrases come as you are. I've heard this before. I've heard people talk about come as you are often. And one, I think there's probably some type of understanding based off of a scripture. But what do I need to study as it relates to come as you are? Some people say come as you are doesn't necessarily mean come as you are. It means your heart posture. But who defines that? And how do we know that come as you are isn't completely everything about you? This also leads to the question about our clothing. Like, what is the power that our clothing has as it relates to come as you are? Because when we separate the two, we separate who you are, we separate your clothing. I go back to the beginning. In the beginning, why were they naked? Why was it okay for them to be naked? Why was it when sin entered the world, they had covered themselves with shame? That's a place where I sit and I say I have to study that, because maybe I'm misunderstanding something. But isn't the idea that we should be getting freer? And I'm not trying to promote that we all should walk around without our clothes on, but I want us to think about why that was the case and why do we have such strong feelings about clothing? It also makes me think about the relationship between the opposite sex and how they respond to our clothing, and then their relationship with their God. So when I think in this lens, I have to just narrow this down to a particular audience, because everyone who believes in God or reads the Bible might not actually follow the principles of God. So these are different groups of people. But for those who intently say, I believe in God, I want to follow principles of Jesus Christ, where is it that we read about self-control? Because when I'm listening to some of the content, I keep going back to the fact that it seems like women have more of a responsibility than men to practice self-control. And a man's self-control is dependent on everything around him. So external factors. It's not too much on how he's practicing his spiritual practices. And I think this is important because everyone won't believe in your faith. So it's up to you to learn how to control how you respond to the world. Because if everything around us is not going to bow down to your desires and your wishes and your dreams, then you have to make a decision to be the best version of yourself and share the fruit of why you choose your belief system. So taking this back to a man, if a man decides, I believe in God, I'm going to follow his faith, that might mean self-control. That might mean that someone is going to come into this church with booty shorts, but I have self-control because I have this relationship with God and he's refining my eyes. He's refining my ears. And so anything outside of me is not me. My response to the things outside of me is showing me more about myself. And I think it's important that we hold each other accountable. I think it's important that we do our best to not put people in the worst situations. But when we come to clothing, I just think that it's a really good discussion for me and God to discuss why do we have so much emphasis here. There's so many things in the world that we could practice as it relates to how we communicate to one another. And clothing just seems like it's at the back of my list. I haven't invested so much time in a person that they come in, they wear something, and I'm thinking about it all day and all night, and it made a damper in my decision making. But I imagine that there are people who probably see certain clothing and it drains them for days. It causes them to sin. And I want to leave space for that. Even though I might be slightly sarcastic right now, I do want to practice leaving space for that. So other things I pulled out was, he said, oh my God, you're judging me. He was talking about people who say, oh, you're not supposed to judge. I am people who say, oh, you're not supposed to judge. But here's the thing. Here is the thing. I'm working on that. I'm working on this idea that someone who's telling a person to not be judgmental is also judging. I'll take that. I'm also considering that we have to learn that when we look at the Bible, there's opportunities for this way and there's opportunities for that way. When I'm learning about myself is when I'm reading the Bible, what stands out to me? Is it the story where the person picks up the stone and they say, throw the stone? Am I that person when it comes to the Bible? Or do I bend towards how to still advocate for someone, still support them, but provide guidance, something for them to consider without it being a bashing moment? So we all have the freedom to do whatever we want. We have this freedom. The thing is, after you have that freedom, where does that land? So if I have the freedom to judge someone, to make fun of them, to make them feel bad online, where do I want that to land? Do I think that the shaming of that person, the belittling of that person in their decision making is going to make me feel better? Do I feel like when I shame that person that it's going to make them turn to Christ? That one day they're going to be like, you know what? If that person didn't say that I was ugly and my outfit was bad, I wouldn't be here today. That's true. People really do respond to shame in a positive way or seemingly positive way. They respond to that because maybe their environment says, I need harsh love. I need somebody to really say it to me like I need to do. Okay. I need someone to really say it to me real hard and angry, and make fun of me. I need that. But perhaps there are people who say, you know what? I cannot receive that. And so there has to be room for everyone to walk in their purpose. So there are going to be people who are really hard at judging, and I believe that everything is working together for the good. So perhaps these people who judge hard will reach people who feel shame, and they're like, you know what, I need to change my life because that person was telling me how it is. But perhaps there are people too who are like, I don't see the God in that, but I do see the God in someone taking the time to be an example. I do see the God in someone who decides to be curious and understand me. And that might make me more receptive to turning from whatever ways are seemingly off. But then I go back to God and say, what really is the off part if at the beginning people were naked? What is the power in clothing? Is it an opportunity for us to practice self-control? Is it an opportunity for us to gain a different relationship with materialistic things and really cultivate our spirit? So from the woman's side, I would say maybe wearing clothing that does not show your skin will allow you to focus on your spirit. Maybe there's an opportunity for that. But is it possible that someone could show skin and still work on their spirit? There's so many places that we can land. And this is where I've learned in my journey is that there's no way that I will move forward with finding every single reason to judge people, because God is my judge. That's my name. Okay. So I know a lot of my judging is coming from God. And if God is my judge, I'm now releasing that to everyone else, that God is the person that's judging other people. And with that type of relationship, there's a little bit more intimacy about what actually happens behind scenes with a person. So consider this. A person looks like they are holy. They look like they just got their lives together. And then behind scenes, they're being sneaky about things. Then the second section is that we have a person who looks like they off and they just rough riding, and God says that that's a man after my own heart. So you're like, whoa, how could that be? I really had some battles with that. Like King David, like what were you doing and why did you have so much grace and mercy on you? When I've seen how much grace and mercy and accountability that God had for David, I had to sit back and say, there's probably space for a person to cultivate their experience with God, that we're all on the spiritual spectrum at different places. Some of us are closer because we spend more time, and some of us are distant because fear and all the things around us. Some of us are even distant because of the people who say that they believe in God pushing us away from God. There's so many different people on the spectrum of spirituality, and each one of these people have their own personal relationship with God that I'm not involved in. I'm not involved in their prayer life. I'm not involved in their conversation with God. I'm not involved with their mindset towards the words that they receive in the Bible. I'm not involved in that. So this is why I say, you shouldn't judge. When he says that in the video, I'm like, yeah, I'm not people. Like, yeah, because there's opportunity for you to still add your criticism with love. And people look at love in such different ways. Like they think that love only has to come in a hard package. Like it ain't love if it's not tough. It ain't love if I'm not telling them how it is. If I'm not exposing them, it ain't love. They need to know this. But when I think about it, I think about love actually coming from the scripture, being not keeping a record of wrongs or being patient. That's exciting because that's a challenge. The way that love, and it's sometimes replaced with charity in Corinthians, like those exercising love in that way is way more challenging than finding someone and picking at their shorts. It's way more of a challenge to practice that angle. And I'm like, I'm up for the challenge. I'm up for the challenge. Because honestly, I don't know what the fruit is if I decide to just make someone feel bad about things. And perhaps that's because of my makeup, that I get a better response when someone is considerate. I have a better response when someone has a softer answer, because there's wisdom in that. The soft answer turns away wrath. So thinking about using God's wisdom in order to free up people is my jam.
Here's a quick pause to talk about systems and why we need them. Sometimes we fill our minds like children at a buffet, grabbing whatever's loud, fast, or familiar. But part of maturing is learning to pause, reflect, and choose better. In this video, we're playing the yay or nay game using the growth framework. It's a system that helps us stretch our responses and move from childlike reactions to more grounded, thoughtful ways of seeing. Instead of asking what we think, we're becoming more aware of how our thinking forms and shifts. As you reflect on the content in this video, also consider what you're consuming in other areas. Food plays a role in how we think. What you feed your body can help you focus, feel steady, and process things clearly. The garden system makes that easier by helping you grow fresh food indoors. Clean, nutrient-rich, and free from the stuff that weighs us down. It's a small shift that supports deeper change. Use the link or scan the QR code for $100 off and let garden be a part of your growth, on your plate and in your mind. Fantastic, wonderful, and ta-da. Back to the video. Quick guide to yay or nay. Watch the clip, choose a side, then explore the growth cards. Pick one that helps you reflect or stretch your view. You don't have to choose every card, just one that challenges you to train your response and not just repeat your opinion.
There's no way that any of y'all are defending B. Simone for what she wore to church. Are we serious? Where do we draw the line?
The speaker reacts strongly to B. Simone's outfit worn at a church event. Short jean shorts, blazer, and a tie. They argue that come as you are is about the heart, not attire. They call the outfit tacky and inappropriate, especially for someone giving a sermon, and suggest the standards need to be upheld for church environments. Yay or nay? Should churches have dress standards for attendees or leaders, even if it contradicts come as you are? Yay. Yes, there should be standards at church. You believe that outward presentation matters, especially in sacred or communal spaces. These cards challenge you to evaluate your stance, your motivation, and your possible blind spot around respectability and presentation. Nay. No, church is for everyone. Come as you are applies to clothing too. You lean toward full acceptance and challenge the idea that God cares what someone wears. These cards ask you to explore personal boundaries, the tension between freedom and community norms, and the long-term vision for radical inclusion. You'll now hear alternated cards for each side, helping you consider both conviction and curiosity. For gut reaction, yay. What did I feel when I saw the outfit or heard this take? For nay, what part of me feels restricted or judged when someone cares about church clothing? Root cards. Study how church dress codes have evolved. Is your current view based more in tradition, scripture, or cultural respectability? Study scriptures or teachings that challenge or support full inclusion without external standards. Options. Yay. If the goal is reverence, what are other ways to embody it besides clothing? How can I protect freedom in the church without dismissing others' discomfort? Who and why? Who for yay? Who did I picture when I think of someone who belongs in church? Nay. Why do dress codes feel necessary in some spiritual communities? Types of responders. Yay. Choose the type of responder and imagine their reply to the original quote. What are they protecting or preserving? The guardian wants to preserve the sacred. The respectability enforcer fears misrepresentation. The culture preserver believes tradition holds the space together. For nay, choose a type of responder and imagine their reply to the original quote. What are they inviting or resisting? Here are your responder types. The radical welcomer embraces full freedom, no gatekeeping. The post-church healer pushes back on traditions that wounded them. Or the mirror holder believes judgment reveals internal discomfort. And then lastly, the harvest card. Yay. Does the gain of setting visual standards outweigh the possible harm or exclusion it may cause? Nay. If someone like B. Simone came back to church dressed the same, would your stance create healing or distance?
So it took me a while to get to the growth cards for yay or nay for this first creator. So I'm hoping that for the few different sections, you get the idea that we're going to listen to a creator. We're going to determine a key quote from that creator. We're going to go in the direction of yay because we completely agree with them and we want to strengthen our argument, but in a mindful way. And again, we can go to nay because we don't agree, but we are open and challenged to understanding different perspectives outside of our own. Let's take a look at this next video.
I'm not going to tell you no word of a lie. B. Simone is a prime example of a wolf in sheep clothing. Oh, yeah, baby. What they say, we living in our last days, so everybody's showing who the they really are. Now, let me break it down to you. When you think about it, God forgive me, but I'm speaking from my heart. When you think about a woman, a guy, they carry and handle themselves a certain way. If y'all look at B. Simone over the years, B. Simone is what you want to call an opportunist. B. Simone, the type of person will metamorphose into anything that she got to be to keep the ball rolling and growing and keep the attention on her and keep that bag coming to her. When you think about all the things that this lady have done throughout her career, you can't make me think that this lady is godly, let alone genuine. Let's start when she committed plagiarism, when she took somebody else's words from their book, word from word, and she got sued. Let's talk about how her friend Ashley, who was doing a podcast, been on her biblical stuff. She been on it. All of a sudden, when you and Ashley detached and y'all stopped doing a podcast together, you went on a campaign of being petty, being malice, and you was being a mean girl. And even now to this day, Ashley still tried to not to belittle you or not to really put out there how the friendship really broke. Now, my thing about it is that I feel like B. Simone is not who she claimed to be because she's still trying to find her identity. Because if this woman knew the Bible like she said she knew the Bible, ain't nobody telling you wear a skirt from your waist down to your ankles. They saying to you, represent yourself for who you say that you are. You are a representation of the woman that you becoming and that the woman that you want to be. And when you speak from out the Bible, you have to lead, not with your tail, but with your head. I said what I said.
Okay, she said what she said. She said what she said. I had a few thoughts here. When I'm writing down what I want to study, I want to study who has I want to study the weight of our sins. Okay, I want to study the weight of wisdom in the Bible because right now I'm now shifting from looking at clothing and now I'm looking at the way that we communicate, whether or not there are standards around sharing your message with or without curse words. Now, I will tell y'all, I'm a little bit uptight about curse words, not in general, but just when they are used to communicate in a tensious way or with tension. When they're used in that way, I'm not sure what the fruit of it is. But I do understand that people use curse words and it's all fun in nature and things like that. But there's something that comes out of it. And this could be something that I can investigate in my own world. But the reason I'm mirroring this is because we're sharing that one person is not supposed to wear particular clothing as we are doing something that other people would say you're not supposed to do in speech. And when they're next to each other, I'm thinking dang, so do you have more weight here because you're in a position to condemn someone else and you are allowed to use these curse words because that's just how it is? Or are we saying that we just want people to follow these standards and practices without any mistakes? So that's where I sit here. That's my opportunity to study. Those are my opportunities to point out some keywords. Now I want to present to you all another yay or nay quote. So let's go back to this content creator and let's look at this quote here.
I'm gonna tell you no word of a lie. B. Simone is a prime example of a wolf in sheep clothing.
The speaker comes with a sharp claim, accusing B. Simone of being spiritually deceptive while still promoting Christian content. The moment forces the viewer to consider how spiritual discernment is used online. Is it a sincere warning or a judgment rooted in personal bias? Yay or nay, should we publicly call out someone who we believe is using God for influence while not living according to their message? Yay, yes, accountability protects the truth. You believe calling out spiritual contradiction is a part of protecting the faith community. These cards help you reflect on your discernment and delivery. Nay, no, this causes harm and is not our place. You believe spiritual growth is personal and public accusations do more harm than good. These cards help you evaluate how grace, patience, and discernment work together. Let's walk through growth on both sides. Gut reactions. Yay. What emotion came up when I heard this claim? Nay. What questions or discomfort did I notice when I heard someone called out this way? Root. Yay. Who taught me how to spot spiritual deception, and do I still agree with their lens? Nay. Who taught me to lead with patience or silence when I feel unsure about someone? Options. Yay. What are other ways to express spiritual concern without sounding like judgment? Nay. What are options I have when I notice inconsistency besides public commentary? Why? What? Yay. Why does it feel important to name spiritual contradiction publicly? Nay. What boundaries do I have for holding someone accountable in love? Types of responder. Yay. Which perspective speaks to you most? The gatekeeper. Defends doctrine at all costs. The clarifier. Makes distinctions to protect seekers. The pattern watcher. Looks for fruit before trust. Nay. Which approach do you most relate to? The rebuilder. Knows judgment can break people. The safe space creator. Allows spiritual contradiction without shame. Or the listener. Observes before labeling. Harvest card. Yay. What would happen if no one ever called out contradiction in faith spaces? Nay. What happens in someone's life when we allow God to reveal truth in time?
With what she had on is that we're discussing what she had on.
Yeah.
We're not discussing anything that God did there.
That's so good.
And that's the problem.
That's the problem.
The problem is we are talking. Y'all know what will be powerful is that we don't talk about it at all, or we talk about what God did there.
Yeah. Exactly.
But unfortunately, we're distracted. I was over the praise team back home with my dad, and we would have weekly staff meetings. And I'll never forget, Dad would say this: tell the praise team, the ladies, to stop wearing those tight jeans. He didn't say stop wearing jeans. He said stop wearing the tight jeans. Now, outside of church, no problem. Y'all know why he was saying tell them to stop wearing the tight jeans? Because he was saying we are sitting in the service and we are forced to see figures. So now we're not thinking about what y'all are singing or who you singing it to.
Yeah.
Realistically, we're looking at butt and thighs, which could be a what? Distraction.
Yeah.
If you are in ministry, you don't represent yourself. You can't do what you want to do. You represent your pastor and that church. And the reason I didn't say God is because you think you represent God with your booty shorts on.
Yeah.
If you are a police officer or a firefighter, come to work in whatever uniform you want to come in and see what happens to you.
Exactly.
You going home. No, say, I don't really like this. This is restricting. So I'm going to go and cut my uniform up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come to work in booty shorts, especially in the summertime.
Yeah.
As a firefighter, because it's hot, as a nurse, as EMS, as a law enforcement officer, you're about to get fired. How the world has systems that we comply with. The church, we're supposed to just come as we are.
This is so good.
Which is not in our biblical policies and procedures. We represent not ourselves.
Yeah.
We represent the kingdom of God. And so how we present ourselves is very, very important. Here's the flip side. I did end that discussion by saying she's not a pastor.
Yeah.
All right, we can talk about what's appropriate, which you just did. But then we have to start saying, but are these people entertainers more than are they spiritual leaders?
Yes, that's good.
Anyway, man,
We
look.
only hit a clip.
Look, be Simone. Be Simone. Just put some clothes on and keep doing your thing.
That's it.
You're doing a great job. Just put some clothes on so I won't be just looking at thighs with these eyes.
Oh my God.
Okay, so keywords and phrases that came out here for me, I think this was a fair response. I think the response is fair because there's some delicacy here and there is some wisdom here about what we're actually responding to. One of the things that stood out to me is her being an entertainer and not a leader, because we do have the tendency to put a lot of weight on people who decide to, one, say they're going to follow God. And I think that's where the confusion comes in, is that people say that they follow God, they put the name or label that they are a certain religion, and then their actions just seem off. And so then that screws up what Christianity looks like, because we're focused on that person just not moving in that way. But it's also fair that we put a lot of weight on the type of leaders that choose this. So one, it's just choosing the faith and all. Then the leaders, we hold those leaders to a higher standard, because is it that they just have some more spiritual discipline in them? Are they supposed to be more powerful when it comes to being able to lead? Or is it that they just have the desire and passion to get closer to God, and so they take it seriously, and so their actions speak like this? But then we have a group of people who decide to go in this direction, and then they just fail you. They say that they believe in this and they chose this leadership role, but they are also human and they fail. And then that also stands out to us. But what if we all held ourselves to a standard, no matter if we had a label or title? Like, we just held ourselves to a standard of loving our neighbor as ourselves. Like, very simple things, focusing on the fruit of the spirit. Like, those are high standards. Whether you decide to be a leader or a pastor, if you stuck with those, you would be held accountable and your leaders would be held accountable. And then we also make a community where it feels shame to not even focus on the fruit of the spirit. The shameful thing is that, oh, you cursing at somebody, you making fun of someone, shame on you. Because over here, that's just not how we move. That's where the shame becomes those type of things versus the politics that we have established in some of these organizations that we call religion and faith. But let's go to the yay or nay cards and pull out whether or not this comment from this creator is going to take you through growth questions for yay or growth questions for nay.
With what she had on is that we're discussing what she had on.
Yeah.
We're not discussing anything that God did there.
That's so good.
And that's the problem.
That's the problem.
The problem is we are talking. Y'all know what will be powerful is that we don't talk about it at all, or we talk about what God did there.
Exactly.
The speaker reflects on how conversations around B. Simone's outfit miss the bigger spiritual focus. They critique how church leaders and entertainers may carry different responsibilities and ask whether some influencers are more interested in building brands than honoring ministry roles. Yay or nay? Are people like B. Simone entertainers first and not responsible for spiritual standards? Yay. Yes, she's an entertainer and not held to ministry rules. You believe influencers are not spiritual leaders and shouldn't be held to the same expectations. These cards explore how you understand responsibility and platform influence. Nay. No, if you mention God, you carry spiritual responsibility. You believe anyone who publicly represents God has a duty to honor that role. These cards help you clarify your expectations and how you separate influence from accountability. Let's walk through growth on both sides. Gut reactions, yay. What's my honest first response when someone mixes God talk with entertainment? Nay. What part of me wants a clear line between faith and public identity? Root, yay. Who shaped how I view influencers who reference God in casual or comedic ways? Nay. Who modeled what it looks like to carry God's name with care, besides Jesus? Options, yay. What are other ways someone can be spiritual without being a religious leader? Nay. What are ways I can offer critique without discrediting someone's full journey? Why? What? Yay. Why might someone mention God but avoid the full weight of spiritual accountability? Nay. What does it mean to represent the kingdom of God in all areas, even on social media? Types of responder. Yay. Choose one and describe how you might respond differently with this mindset. The entertainer protects authenticity and humor. The platform builder blends influence with inspiration. The free agent avoids organized religion but believes in God. Nay. Choose one and describe how that view shapes your expectations. The standard bearer keeps faith aligned with conduct. The shepherd watcher looks out for the vulnerable. The line drawer cares about clarity between sacred and secular. Harvest, yay. What do we gain by letting people express God on their terms? Nay. What might be lost if spiritual messages are not rooted in example?
So now what we're going to do is we're going to shift the tone a little bit. We're going to go through some other pieces of content that came through my algorithm this week that I thought brought up really good conversations. And it's all centered around this idea of people choosing to live the way that they want to choose. So yes, B. Simone, thank you for being the content creation today with your decision making, and for the creator who shared the idea of people not thinking about us. And I want to thank the creators that I'm going to go through next and the last end of this video for sharing their perspectives. Let's take a look at this video, and then I want you to pull out your yay or nay responses.
Possible unpopular opinion, I don't want kids, and you shouldn't either, nigga. Matter of fact, you need to stop having kids. Every time I tell somebody that, specifically my peers or friends, they be like, oh, well, why you want kids? Nigga, why do you? I feel like all the people that's having kids should not be passing them genes on, buddy. You barely graduated high school. You're hurting us, literally. We got niggas voting. I asked a nigga last week, bro, who you vote for? He said the red side. I said, what they call? I don't know, the red side. Niggas is gang banging via vote. Nigga just voting. When somebody asks me a genuine question, I'll try my best to give them a valid answer. I'm a little bit smart-mouthed and got a lot of bit of sass in me. I seen an ad last week that was promoting taking out loans to buy groceries. Niggas is using a 3-step payment plan to buy groceries. And you're asking me why I want kids. Nigga put 30% down on a dozen of eggs, and you're asking me why I don't want kids. I got a friend that's in therapy to this day because they mama think they should pay them back for the 9 months that they carried them. That bitch is low. The air is sometimes bad, food is sometimes bad, water is sometimes bad. Niggas, everybody gets an opinion. Mind you, niggas is getting opinions even on topics that they not educated on. I just found out what black fatigue was. Mind you, it's just racism. Everything boils down to racism, unfortunately. But wait, there's more. Global warming. That's a thing. Only way I think people should start having kids again is if it's a mandatory IQ test. Because you niggas is stupid. We need to stop asking each other, why don't you want kids? And start asking each other, why do you want kids? What's a valid reason to bring a kid in this world? Because y'all just be just bunny fuck body. Having a kid knowing that you're already cooked without a kid is crazy work. Nigga, you can't afford a McGriddle from McDonald's and you think you can afford a kid? That's stupid. You're slow. I'm sorry, buddy. You're cooked. I think it's dumb. And then mind you, it's not even your fault that you can't afford the McGriddle. A French fry from McDonald's is $6. A large French fry from McDonald's is $6. There's somebody uncle for $6. You might be thinking, well, I got this degree, or I'm smart, or I got these. It doesn't matter how smart or useful you are in a world that doesn't value skill. People are not getting paid because they're smart. People are not getting paid because they're useful. Nigga, we live in a society that values entertainment. And I feel like I want to be mad at people for valuing entertainment over like useful skills. But if you think about it, if my life was cooked, I would want to be distracted too. Like, y'all out here having kids, traumatizing them, and now we gotta deal with them little niggas. I got Timmy with a switch, with a rocket launcher with a switch attachment on it, and I gotta deal with him because you're a bad parent. Like, please stop having kids, bro. Especially if you ugly, stop having kids. Also, if you got like some weird disease, weird disabilities, stop having kids. Like, I feel like people don't say, like, because everybody's so scared to hurt somebody's feeling, people are not saying what they should be saying. If you have some genetic mutation, stop passing that along. Like, that's how natural selection works. Y'all used to not make it, so then the next generation didn't have to deal with that. But because everybody's having kids, we gotta deal with it. Now I got Super Saiyan sickle cell because my great grandpa was being freaky and he wasn't supposed to be. Can y'all just relax, please? And I don't mean no harm. If you want to have a kid, have a kid. At the end of the day, you're gonna be cooked, not me. Child also gonna be mad. He's probably gonna make a TikTok 20 years from now saying how much he hates you. I'm just saying, younger generation, especially my generation, y'all should not be having kids unless you got the bag on you. Even if you got the bag, nigga, multiply that by 2, didn't have a kid. That's my plan. I don't really want kids at all, ever. But if I, like, God forbid somebody force one on me, I'm hoping I'm having the bag. Also, if you ever see me have a kid, just know I'm blinking twice. Save me. I did not want to have this kid. They threw it at me.
Okay. This came through my algorithm, and I thought that it was a good conversation. One, because although this creator is using like humor and they're also saying things bluntly, I don't react in the way that I usually react when I hear people judging, because there was so much quality content or quality questions that are pulled through the discussion. And I think that's the other part about where my don't judge, measurement tool lands, is that if there's so many good points and content that the tone is removed or the lack of tact is removed and there's this quality content, most people, you just can't refute that. It gets just a little muddy when people are leading with this type of judgment that seems like they're trying to attack a person. And I don't know. I don't get that from this messenger too much. I do feel like there's probably some type of slight attack, but it just doesn't stand out as much as the quality questions stand out. And so when I wrote down my notes, I have a lot, but I'm only going to pull out a few. I had a lot of opportunities to study because I haven't really heard of Black fatigue. I have an assumption of what that means, but something I would want to study. I also pulled out values entertainment. So one thing that I've been studying on my channel is the role of AI, our relationship with money, in the idea that we can't free up life. And when I think about how we need to be useful in order to bring forth life, I have lots of questions. I have lots of questions because what if us just existing is okay? Is it that the system created all these ideas around our usefulness and we believe that? Because when I think about why I want to have children and I'm looking at this video, I think about my grandma. Because for one, America, life, Earth, it is a very interesting experience. It's definitely not a 10 out of 10, but that's on a surface level. On a surface level, it doesn't feel like a 10 out of 10. But when I think about the type of lessons and the fact that I'm here, like one time it was dark and I had no idea that life was living. And then I came here and it didn't feel weird. I just kind of came on the earth and was laughing and walking and talking and experiencing all the things. I will have to say that a lot of my life was good stuff. And there were also things that made me feel uncomfortable. There were things that challenged me. There were things that grew me. But I don't know, y'all. It's interesting here. Living on Earth is so interesting. Life is interesting to me. And I love the opportunity that I was brought into this world. And I'm not thinking about whether or not I was brought in the manner that is the most successful. But again, I'm thinking about my grandma. She is what inspired me to have children, because my grandma could make a piece of toast, and I would feel so loved. Like it was almost like her touching the toast and her creating it for me just like made my body feel like food. I don't know. it was something about a piece of toast. And I appreciated this woman. Like when I was just next to her in the type of nurture and care, and it wasn't even a lot going on. Like we were just watching the stories or watching the MASH commercial come on. That's when I went to sleep. But I was just with my grandma and I just felt at peace. And I kept thinking, like, if anything, I would want to be like my grandma. And one of the ways that I thought about that is like, wow, she brought in all of these children. And that must be a big deal. Like, I probably should have children. I also think that she had a lot of children. At one point, I wanted to have as many as she had, but then nope. I decided I don't need all those children. But it was who my grandma was to me. And seeing, I don't know, being around a person who just felt so warm and loving, I just looked up to that. So I know that the root of me wanting to have children was my grandma and my grandpa. My grandpa, he made me laugh. He gave me peanuts, lollipops. It was a good time. And I didn't have as much time with my grandpa. And I'm only talking about one side of my family just because they live right next door to us. But on my other side of my family, my grandma, like I had a lot of love growing up for the most part. And even through the times that were tough, I had such a village that it was almost like everything kind of had its buffer. And so life might not be as fantastic as it could be, but there's so many great things to extract from life. I just love this experience. But now we're living in a time on earth where I can understand why people are like, do not bring children into this world. So I'm looking at the credibility in this message. And I'm also thinking about it logically. So let's say this young man, he is a truth teller and everyone finds his video and they say, you know what? We need to do what he says. He makes sense. And then everyone decides not to have children anymore. What does that mean? Do we just go into a world where it eventually is all robots and we just forget about humanity? And this is where the challenge comes in. Like, yeah, there's AI, there's robots, like, but aren't we interested in just finding out if we started to practice love more and be intentional and get rid of all these divisions and back and forths, like what life could be like for us? Like, are we not up for that challenge? We just want to get taken over. Like, what if we just tried it out? Yo, it's not the easiest probably, but it's probably the most impactful for extracting something out of this life. And even if we can't change everyone's thoughts, like maybe making the decision for ourselves will allow us to get the best things out of this earth. But the last thing is this idea of getting as much money as possible to have children. It also goes back to this never could be enough. And what is the relationship like when you do have a creator that says, take no thought for tomorrow, whether you eat or drink? That's one of the things that I had to tell myself when I first had my firstborn child. I really believed in that scripture so much. I believed in it so much that I remember saying like, hey, I'm having a baby. And that's what everybody else thought about, like the money. And I said, y'all don't read the Bible? It said I don't have to take no thought. I don't got to take no thought for tomorrow, no food, no clothing. And I'll be thinking about it now. But I really feel like I necessarily don't have to take any thought because I haven't been begging for bread. I haven't been begging for bread. Everything has been working out. Even when it feels like it's not going to work out, even when it feels tired or stressful, like it works out. And that's exciting to me. I don't want to live a life in fear. I don't want to live a life in suffering. I want to love well, and I want to get closer to that. That's the exciting part as well. So I get the content creators argument. I also want to make space for understanding this a little bit more deeply and studying it. And this is where I want anyone in the comments to share, why did they decide to be a parent, especially in the type of world that we live in now? Is it a good idea? Because I don't think the world looked like this when I decided to have children. But I'm thinking now, like, would you still do it? Why? What is parenting about? Because I think this is a really good discussion, because most of the time people say it's the selfish thing, right? We say, if you decide not to have children, you're selfish. And then they say, if you decide to have children, you're selfish. So we're thinking about the word selfish. So what is selfish about each side? And what are the gifts or the return on each side? Are there pros and cons? And the pros and cons outweighing one another? Where is the weight of selfishness? Like, why is it leaned on one area or the other? I think it's probably some balance here. Like, when you think about the pros and cons of each side, like I can't necessarily say what it would be like if I didn't have children. It could be a dream or not a dream. It could be something that I could fantasy. No, I don't want to say any of those words. Oops. It could be something that I can imagine, right? But I absolutely will not know, because the world is so interesting. It could be that I thought that not having children would put me in a certain position, but I don't know. What happened is I had children, and it's been a part of my identity for sure. And I find it to be interesting. And I remember why I decided to have them, because of my grandmother. And I still hold tight to that. And I also remember as I grew up, and that still being a constant, I wanted to have children so I can play games. So it's really selfish. It's like, I wanted to play games, and I wanted to talk to them about life. I wanted to be like, hey, like, this is I wanted something that I didn't necessarily have as well. So maybe those are selfish things. But does everything have to make sense? Do we have to have order in just living and existing? Because if I think about, if I did truly put all my trust in God, and God was able to provide everything, and I wasn't worried about money, and I didn't have a relationship with money where I had to keep getting more and more and more and stressing out, would having people and community around me be something that made life full, instead of thinking like I needed to be by myself because I have to keep working through the system? This is where I think that idea is disconnected. We have to lean on money, and we're deciding to do that in order to survive America and survive Earth, where maybe we're going in the wrong direction. Like, maybe we should be looking at community and cultivating the children that grow up, because it is true that these young children, they once were little babies. And it's like, oh, look at the little baby. The baby is so little. And then that baby grows up and they become a murderer. Or that baby grows up and they decide to be less kind, or whatever, all the bad things that can happen. That little baby does it. But at one point we said, oh, you a little cute little baby. So I do believe when we talk about who should be a parent, like, please have the desire to be a parent at least. Because even if you can come in and have the desire and it still might surprise you, but at the very least, have the desire. Because I imagine that who we are going to be the makeup of the people that are going to lead. So part of this decision, even though it's selfish, is about the future. And if you make the decision to be a parent, you have to be mindful and thoughtful about what the future looks like based off of your decisions with that child. But here's the yay or nay for this section.
Possible unpopular opinion, I don't want kids, and you should neither.
Speaker argues aggressively against having children, claiming that many people are not mentally, financially, or genetically equipped to be parents, with examples ranging from economic instability to generational trauma. They question why the desire to have children goes unchallenged. Yay or nay, is it irresponsible to have children in today's world without deep preparation and reflection? Yay. Yes, people should seriously evaluate before having children. You believe bringing children into the world requires emotional, financial, and ethical consideration. These cards help explore why you feel this way and what kind of preparation matters most. Nay. No, parenting is a personal calling, and the choice can be valid without proving its worth. You see the decision to have children as something deeply personal, not something that always needs justification. These cards invite you to explore the hopes, values, and quiet convictions that shape this path even when the world questions it. Gut reaction. Yay. What responses from the speaker felt most urgent or true to you? Nay, what part of this message made you pause or reflect more carefully? Root card. Yay. Explore how society or your personal experiences shape your standards for when someone is ready to be a parent. Nay. Explore how the idea of parenting as a personal choice has been shaped by culture, media, or personal observation. Options. Yay. What could a more compassionate version of this argument look like? Nay. What motivations for parenting are often ignored when people assume it's selfish or rushed? Why card, yay. Why might someone feel pressure to have children before they're ready? What, nay. What support structures could help someone feel more confident in their decision to have children? Types of responder, yay. Pick a lens to process this message through. The preventer wants to stop harm before it begins. The critical eye examines every norm for its fruit. The social economist measures choice by future impact. Describe what the lens reveals that your personal view might miss. Nay, choose a lens to help process this. The right to choose advocate believes in freedom to decide. The generational dreamer sees parenting as redemptive. The hopeful realist understands the odds but sees value. Describe what the lens adds to the conversation that your first reaction might miss. Harvest cards, yay. What positive impact could come from normalizing hesitation before parenthood? Nay, what potential is unlocked when people choose to raise children with attention even when others disagree?
I think all of these videos made sense for me and my algorithm, and they made sense to put together in this video, but you let me know if the yay or nay game was hitting or not, how I can refine it. If you find that it was a confusing or even in my delivery of the directions, boom, 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 let me know. But let's take a look at this last video and have our last yay or nay session.
Girl, did you know that your brain doesn't just judge others? It actually punishes you for it. There is something that Christ taught about judgment that neuroscience actually confirms. Let's talk about it. Neuroscience confirms that when you judge someone, your brain activates your amygdala, which is responsible for fear, threat detection, and stress. You literally put your body into a low-level state of fight or flight, even if the person you're judging isn't in the room. It's not just a moral thing. Actually scientific. There was this 2008 study from Emory University that found that moral judgment actually lights up the areas of the brain associated with pain and disgust, which means your brain actually sees the wrong in others as a threat to your safety. This goes completely hand in hand with the teachings of Christ when he said, "Do not judge or you too will be judged." It wasn't just a spiritual warning. It was a lesson in emotional intelligence. Judgment literally creates separation in the brain and the soul. But this doesn't mean we shouldn't have discernment. It just means that we're called to see clearly without condemning harshly. Discernment is rooted in wisdom, but judgment is rooted in fear and ego. If this video spoke to you, my name is Aya, and I love talking about neuroscience, healing, and faith. If that kind of content speaks to you, follow me and share this with someone that needs the message.
So a lot of things came out of this video that really taught me. One is the fear of, let's see, let me write. What did my notes say? I can't even read it, y'all. Okay. Wrong. What is the saying? Wrong to others is a threat to your safety. Okay, oh yeah. We see the wrong of others as a threat to our safety. This is allow me to understand why I'm one of those people that say, oh, you're not supposed to judge. Because it does feel like a threat when people don't choose grace or this type of, hey, I'm going to support you so that people don't harm you, but I'm also going to correct you. Like, there is no tact with that. It's just throw the stones. It's no self-reflection. That does feel unsafe. especially when it comes to people trying to figure out this life and hold on to a spiritual belief system. We're all trying to investigate whether or not this is it or this is not. Some of us have a true relationship or experience that allow us to hold tight to these faiths, but others are like, I don't know where it's safe. And so sometimes it's like, I'm going to stay away from these places that claim that they love God because it looks like it's more dangerous over there than there is safety. And I imagine that there is some type of like grit that you have to have when you're going against the evil world. But the other part of that is, shouldn't it also be a spiritual battle? It shouldn't feel so tiring. It shouldn't feel so hard. It should be like, I'm praying, I'm fasting. Like, these are spiritual things that I have to do, not really physical things in order for me to actually plant seeds that's actually going to have a harvest. So it doesn't feel safe when people define themselves as Christian or have a faith system, but everything that comes out of their faith system is something to be scared about or something to judge someone about or something that is like condemning. That doesn't feel safe. And it makes so much sense that people are like, I don't want to deal with them. I'm going to go somewhere else. And that's where, when we go back to the original message, when we think about the shorts and the clothing, that is an aspect. We talked about that being a distraction. But what if the distraction is that you are so judgmental? What if that's also a distraction? Isn't that something to consider? That instead of people coming to God or understanding the word, they're distracted and pulled away because you want to talk about someone's shorts. You don't want to talk about how, God has done these things for you, or this is the wisdom that God has implanted in you, and this is how God has showed up in your life. You want to talk about someone else and make them feel bad. That is also a distraction. But y'all let me know, because I just be on earth trying to figure it out and have us go through some good conversation starters. But to close out, I want to play this last yay or nay game with you all from my favorite video out of this section.
Girl, did you know that your brain doesn't just judge others? It actually punishes you for it?
Aya discusses how moral judgment triggers stress responses in the brain. Referencing Emory University research and scripture, she explains that judgment activates area of pain and fear. The message reinforces Christ's teaching to avoid judgment, connecting spiritual guidance with neuroscience. Yay or nay? Do you believe judgment does more harm to you than the person you're judging? Yay. Yes, judgment mostly harms the one doing it. You see judgment as emotionally and spiritually draining. These prompts help explore how that belief affects your relationships, faith, and stress. Nay. No, judgment is a tool for discernment and boundaries. You believe judgment has a place in evaluating right from wrong. These prompts help explore how to hold convictions without internal damage. Gut reaction cards. Yay. What did I immediately feel hearing that judgment activates the fear center in our brain? Nay. When I think of judgment, what emotion or body reaction do I usually experience? Root cards. Yay. Reflect on when you first learned that judgment can hurt your spirit. What taught you that? Nay. Explore how society or spiritual teachings shape your view of judgment as a useful or necessary tool. Options. Yay. What are healthier ways I've found to form boundaries without judgment? Nay. What scenarios require discernment but can feel like judgment? How do I tell the difference? Why? Yay. Why do I return to judgment even when I know it adds stress? Nay. What does discernment mean to me, and how is it different from judgment? Types of responder. Yay. Choose a lens to view the quote from. The inner peace seeker prioritizes emotional health. The grace giver leads with compassion. The energy preserver avoids unnecessary spiritual weight. Describe what this lens brings forward that we might overlook. Types of responder. Nay. Choose a lens to help process this message. The boundary builder uses discernment to stay safe. The justice seeker believes truth must be named. The honest evaluator thinks clarity helps everyone. Describe what this lens helps clarify without getting stuck in judgment. Harvest card. Yay. What changes in me when I stop silently judging others? Nay, what's the long-term benefit of using discernment wisely while staying emotionally grounded?
So I hope you all enjoyed this video. If it made sense, let me know in the comments. Click the like button if what I said makes sense. You do not have to subscribe here. I'm not interested in people subscribing. I'm also just interested in people going through these activities with me in choosing to come back for that reason, because they actually want to be here with someone talking a whole bunch. So thank you all for your time. If you made it this far, thank you for your time, because this is a lot of time. I enjoy my exposure rejection therapy here on YouTube, where I'm just sharing my thoughts. So I'm thankful for you. Until next time, hold on to you as much as you can. Hold on to your health, your well-being, and your mind. Be mindful. Bye. Breathe.